Elena shook her head. No, I didn't quit. I just disappeared. Clara studied the painting under UV light. This isn't ordinary oil. There's a synthetic compound in the medium, almost luminescent under heat. What does that mean? It means someone mixed something into your paint that doesn't belong in art. She looked up. This isn't just a painting, Ellie. It's data. Elena's breath caught. Data. Clara nodded grimly. Encoded pigment layering. Some biotech labs have been experimenting with visual memory mapping, converting neural activity into visual patterns. It's mostly theoretical. Not to Adrian, Elena whispered. Clara frowned. You think he used you? I think he was part of it. West Industries funds half the biomedical startups in the state. He could have done anything. Elena traced the edge of the canvas, her fingers trembling. And if this was part of it, maybe the fire wasn't an accident. Clara hesitated. Ellie, listen to me. If this is what I think it is, you're in danger. These programs weren't ethical. People went missing. Artists, patients, anyone tied to memory reconstruction. Elena looked at her friend. Then why do I still remember him? Clara's eyes softened. Because love doesn't need permission from memory. The words hit her harder than expected. She turned away, trying to steady her breath. I don't know what's real anymore. Clara touched her shoulder. Then start where you always did, with color, paint it. Let your hands remember what your mind can't. Elena looked down at her palms, still stained faintly with ochre and burnt sienna. She nodded. I'll try. Later that night, back home, she set up a blank canvas. She didn't think, she just painted. Her hands moved instinctively. Colors bleeding into each other, like veins of thought. Gold, blue, ash gray. Shapes began to form, a window. A fire, two figures blurred together, and then a room she didn't recognize, but felt painfully familiar. A table. A man holding her by the wrist, her own voice saying, I don't want to forget you, and his reply, cold and tender all at once, then I'll help you remember me forever. Her brush froze mid-air. Tears stung her eyes. The image on the canvas glowed faintly in the dim light, as if the paint itself carried its own memory, and behind that glow, in faint strokes invisible to the eye, she could just make out a code written in color, something layered into the pigments, a sequence. A pattern. Coordinates. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Stop painting. She stared at the screen, heart pounding. Elena, who is this? Unknown. Someone trying to save you. Elena. From Adrian. Unknown. From yourself. Before she could reply, the message thread disappeared, erased entirely from her phone. Outside, thunder rolled through the city, the sound echoing like the crack of a closing door. She turned toward the canvas again. The coordinates glimmered, faintly under the STORMLIGHT, and at the center of the painting, the two figures she had drawn herself and Adrian now looked like they were burning. The coordinates led her east out of the city, past the grey edges of Seattle, into the forgotten industrial sprawl that bled into the foothills. She drove for hours through rain and silence, the glow of her dashboard painting her face in restless blue. When she turned off the main road, the GPS went dead. No signal, no sound except the tires crunching over gravel. Ahead, half hidden by fog, stood a concrete building marked W17. The letters were faded, but the logo beneath them, a minimalist silver W, was unmistakable. West Industries. The place looked abandoned, but the air smelled faintly of ozone and paint thinner, like someone had been here recently. Elena pushed open the rusted door. It groaned, the sound swallowed by the empty space inside. Fluorescent lights flickered weakly overhead, revealing a long corridor lined with closed doors. Dust lay thick on everything, yet the floors had footprints, fresh ones. She hesitated, then followed them. Each door she passed had a small brass plate, etched with words that didn't belong in an art facility. Subject O1A, recall stage. Subject O to B, reintegration. Her stomach twisted. Subjects. At the end of the hall, one door stood slightly ajar, light spilling from beneath it. She pushed it open. The room inside took her breath away. Hundreds of canvases lined the walls, all variations of her own work. Each painting showed the same woman, her. Different expressions, different moments, different emotions, fear, love. Loss captured in color so precise it felt invasive. Every one of them bore the same signature in the corner. E. Cruz West. She stepped closer to one labeled Cycle 14, Reinforcement. In it, she stood before a window, Adrian's reflection behind her. She reached out, fingertips brushing the paint, and the lights in the room flickered. A speaker crackled above her head. Then a voice. "You were never supposed to see this." Elena froze. "Who's there?" "You shouldn't have come here, Elena." "Adrian." She whispered. No answer, just static. Her pulse thundered in her ears. She turned toward the door, but it slammed shut. Locking mechanisms clicked into place. "Stop," she shouted. "Open the door." Nothing, she spun, searching the walls. That's when she noticed a faint hum coming from a console in the corner. An old terminal still running on backup power. On the screen, a message flickered. Project Palimpsest status. Terminated primary subject, E. Cruz. Cognitive pattern, preserved in series 1 to 15. Her knees went weak. Preserved. She scrolled down. Lines of text blurred together. Neural mirror mapping. Sensory imprint encoding. Emotional tether reinforcement. And then, the last line, memory donor. A West. Elena staggered back. Her breath came fast, shallow. Memory donor. She repeated under her breath. "He gave me the speaker," hissed again. "He didn't give it to you." "He took it." Her heart jumped. The voice wasn't Adrian's. It was a woman's, steady, clear, tinged with sadness. "Who are you?" "I was the doctor in charge of your trial." Before he shut us down, Elena's throat went dry. "Trial? You're saying this was a therapeutic experiment?" "At first, you were supposed to paint to externalize trauma. But Adrian, he changed the parameters." The doctor's voice cracked slightly. "He merged your neural data with his own. A full emotional graft. You became the anchor for his memory loss." Elena shook her head violently. "No, that doesn't make sense." "It does if you were both losing yourselves. You after the accident. Him after the fire. He didn't want to forget you, Elena, so he made sure neither of you could." She whispered, "By erasing me, by binding you." The lights flickered again, then died. Darkness swallowed the room. Somewhere in the corridor, footsteps echoed, slow, deliberate. She turned toward the door, holding her breath. The handle turned from the other side. The lock clicked open. Light poured in, silhouette framed against the doorway. "Adrian," she said, trembling. "What did you do to me?" He stepped inside, face half lit by the flickering emergency light. His expression was unreadable, tired, haunted. "I saved you," he said softly, "by putting my memories into a machine, by giving you back the part of me you lost." She backed away. "You used me." "No," he said, his voice breaking. "I loved you. That's what started all this. Love doesn't erase people." He closed his eyes. "No, but grief does." For a moment, neither spoke. The hum of the old machines filled the silence like a heartbeat. Finally, Adrian said, "You weren't supposed to remember this place. You weren't supposed to remember me like this. Then why send me the painting?" He looked at her, a mixture of guilt and longing, because the program failed. The memories are collapsing. You're remembering too fast. It's going to destroy everything we built. Her voice trembled. Then let it. He reached out, desperate. If you keep painting, the line between us will disappear. You'll lose what's left of you. She met his gaze, defiant, tearful. Maybe that's the point. They stood there, inches apart, two people trapped in the same broken memory, trying to rewrite the truth with love and fear and paint. Outside. Lightning struck, illuminating the walls for an instant, and in that flash, all the portraits of Elena seemed to turn their eyes toward them, watching, remembering. The alarms began as a low hum, then swelled into a deafening pulse that shook the walls. Red lights strobed through the hallway, washing Adrian's face in color that looked like blood. What did you do? Elena shouted over the noise. I didn't trigger it. He yelled back. The system detected unauthorized access. It's on auto-destruct. Then how do we stop it? He turned to the console. You can't. Not anymore. It's wiping the entire database. Her eyes darted to the walls lined with her portraits. All of these gone, he said, his voice breaking. All your cycles. All the memory links. Smoke began to seep from vents above. The air filled with the smell of burning plastic and turpentine. Elena grabbed his arm. There has to be another way out. He nodded toward the far end of the lab. Maintenance tunnel. This way. They ran. The hallway stretched endlessly, lined with glass panels that reflected them again and again, like 1,000 versions of themselves watching. Each flash of light caught a different reflection, sometimes Elena alone, sometimes Adrian behind her, sometimes neither of them at all. As they reached the tunnel door, a screen on the wall flickered on by itself. A video began to play, distorted footage of a studio bathed in sunlight. A younger Elena sat before an easel, painting furiously. Adrian stood behind her, hand on her shoulder, her voice from the recording. If I forget, paint me into something that remembers. His reply, if you forget, I'll paint myself out of you. Then static, Elena froze. What is that? Adrian didn't answer. Another screen flickered on further down the hall. Then another. Everywhere, videos began to play. Fragments of moments she didn't know she'd lived. Elena laughing, paint smeared on her cheek. Adrian holding her hand as she sketched a cityscape. Her screaming at him, tearful, saying, You can't fix me with a brush. Him shouting back, Then what else do I have left? The hallway became a gallery of ghosts. Each screen whispered her name. She turned to him. How many times did you make me forget? He swallowed hard. Once, only once. Liar. His voice cracked. You wanted it. I wanted peace, not erasure. The lights flickered again, and another recording bled through. This one clear, sharp dot. Elena in a hospital gown. Adrian sitting beside her, signing papers. A doctor's voice. Once we transfer the residuals, she won't remember him. She just... Paint. Do it, Adrian said. Her world tilted. She stared at him now, trembling. You let them wipe me. The building rumbled violently, ceiling dust raining down. The alarm now merged with the sound of her heartbeat. He stepped forward. I didn't know they'd erase everything. I thought it was a reset, a way to stop the panic attacks, the nightmares. You were drowning, Elena. You took away the ocean. He shook his head. I tried to save the person I loved. You turned her into a painting. The heat was rising. Flames licked the far end of the corridor. Adrian grabbed her hand. We have to move. Now. She pulled away. No, I need proof this happened. You'll die here. Then I die with the truth. He hesitated, torn, then ran to the nearest console and slammed his palm against it. The screen cracked, but one file blinked open. Cycle 0, origin, pattern I, single image, loaded. The first painting, unfinished, raw. Her face half-formed, eyes closed, and his fingerprints visible in the paint. A time stamp marked the corner, 5 years ago. The day of the fire, she whispered. I remember this. Adrian's eyes widened. Elena, the memory hit her like light through glass. The studio, the smell of turpentine, Adrian holding her as she sobbed, her saying, "It hurts too much." Him whispering, "Then forget me. I'll remember for both of us." And then the flames. She staggered back, clutching her head. "I started the fire. I did it." He caught her before she fell. "You were trying to destroy the data, not yourself." Her tears blurred everything. "And you rebuilt it anyway." An explosion shook the floor. Smoke flooded the hallway. Adrian pulled her through the maintenance door just before the roof caved in behind them. They stumbled into a narrow tunnel, coughing, choking Dot at the far end. A faint exit sign glowed green through the haze. When they reached it, she collapsed against the wall, trembling. "It's gone, everything." He knelt beside her. "Not everything." She looked at him. "What's left?" He touched her chest gently. "The part of me still in you." Outside, the night was drenched in rain. The building behind them burned quietly, flames, mirrored in the puddles like molten color. Elena watched until the structure collapsed inward, devoured by smoke. A strange calm settled over her. She turned to him. "What happens now?" Adrian's face was pale in the firelight. "Now you start over." "Without me?" She shook her head slowly. "You don't get to decide that anymore." He gave a small, broken smile. "You already did. The moment you remembered." He started walking toward the road, rain falling harder. Elena watched him go until he was only a shadow against the smoke. Then she turned her eyes back to the fire, where the last fragments of her painted self were turning into light. Seattle looked cleaner after the fire. At least, that's what the news said. Industrial accident contained. No casualties, West Industries under investigation. But for Elena, the city hadn't been clean in years. The rain could wash away the ash, but not the smell. 2 weeks had passed since the night she and Adrian escaped. He hadn't called. He hadn't appeared in the news. It was as if he'd dissolved into smoke, the same way the building had. Sometimes she thought she imagined him altogether, another phantom conjured by memory and grief. The shop reopened quietly. Mr. Barker didn't ask questions, just gave her space. He noticed the burns on her forearm once, but didn't comment. Customers came and went, weddings, graduations, small-town portraits, ordinary lives preserved behind glass. She envied them at night. After Lucas went to bed, she'd sit in her small studio, staring at the blank wall where the portrait used to hang. She hadn't painted since the fire. Every time she tried, her hand shook. She feared what would come out this time, truth, or another version of it. Then one evening, a package arrived. No return address, no courier record, just her name written in neat, deliberate letters. Elena Cruz. Her stomach tightened. She almost didn't open it, but curiosity, or instinct, one dot inside was a rolled canvas wrapped in linen. No note, no signature. Her hands trembled as she unwrapped it. It was a painting, but not one she remembered making at first glance. It looked like another. She sat beside a window, same as before. The brushwork familiar, the palette hers, but the details were wrong. Her hair was shorter. Her eyes held something quieter. And behind her, in the reflection of the glass, Adrian stood. He was smiling. Not the guarded, tortured smile she remembered. This one was peaceful. At the bottom corner, scrawled in faint pencil, Cycle 16, completion. Her breath caught. That's impossible. She brought the painting closer, holding it to the light. The signature shimmered faintly, as if written in metallic ink, underneath her own name. Smaller but visible were two letters, AWHER. Heart raced. Had he survived the fire? Was this his way of telling her? Or was it something worse, a final echo from the project, surfacing through whatever was left of her memory? That night, she dreamed of fire again. But this time, it wasn't chaos. It was slow, beautiful, deliberate. She and Adrian stood in the burning studio, the air golden with sparks. He reached for her face, unafraid. "Do you know what fire does?" he asked softly. "It remembers by consuming." She touched his chest. "Then what happens when it burns everything? Then memory becomes light." She woke up crying. Morning came grey and cold. Lucas padded into her room. "Mom, you were talking in your sleep again." She pulled him close. "What did I say?" He yawned. "You said, don't let him fade." She froze. "Did I say who?" He shook his head. "Just that." He climbed into her lap, wrapping his arms around her neck. "You okay?" She smiled faintly, brushing his hair back. "Yeah, baby, just." Remembering, later that day, she took the painting to Clara at the Institute. Her friend's eyes widened the moment she saw it. "Ellie, this shouldn't exist. The fire destroyed everything." "I know, but it came in the mail. Look at the code in the pigment." Clara brought the canvas under UV light. Symbols flared to life, faint numeric strings hidden in the layers of paint, coordinates again. Elena asked. Clara squinted. "No, not coordinates this time. What, then?" Clara hesitated. "A date." Elena's pulse quickened. When Clara turned off the light, meeting her eyes. "Tomorrow." That night, Elena couldn't sleep. The city felt restless, the rain tapping out a rhythm she couldn't ignore. She went to her studio, lit a single lamp, and stared at the painting. The eyes in the portrait looked back, calm, almost knowing. She whispered, "If you're still out there." "What do you want from me?" No answer. Just the soft hum of the rain and the faint metallic glimmer of her signature beside his. She sat down, picked up a brush, and dipped it in vermilion. She didn't know why, just that she had to. As the color touched the edge of the painting, something shifted underneath the surface, a faint warmth. Like breath, the paint wasn't dry, and for the first time in years, Elena realized the canvas was still alive. The rain stopped some time before dawn. Seattle lay under a pale fog, still and empty, as if the whole city was holding its breath. Elena stood at her window, staring at the painting one last time. The light from outside softened the colors. The figure of Adrian in the reflection almost seemed to move. The numbers Clara had decoded burned in her mind. A date today. A location hidden in the signature. The coordinates of a private lake north of the city, owned by West Industries. She packed her things before sunrise. Something told her this wasn't about finding answers. It was about finishing the story. The road to the lake was winding and silent. Mist hung over the evergreens like memory, thin, half-real, half-imagined. She parked near the old boathouse, where the air smelled of wet wood and iron. The surface of the water was still, a mirror. And there, across the dock, she saw him, Adrian, alive. He stood by the water, wearing a dark coat, his hair damp with fog. When he turned, she saw the exhaustion in his face, and something else. Something wrong. His eyes were familiar, but they didn't look like his. They looked like hers. "Elena," he said quietly. She froze. "How are you here?" He smiled faintly. "I should ask you the same." "You died in that fire." "Not exactly." He looked at the water. "Part of me did." "What does that mean?" He hesitated. You remember cycle 16? She nodded slowly. The painting, it wasn't a message, he said. It was a map. They walked along the dock. The water lapped gently against the wood. Below them, reflections wavered, sometimes showing one of them, sometimes both, sometimes none. Adrian stopped near the edge, kneeling beside an old metal case. He opened it. Inside were dozens of small glass vials, each glowing faintly in the mist. Colors shimmered inside them: cobalt, crimson, gold. Paint or something, pretending to be paint. She recognized the labels. Emotional data capsules, she whispered, from the Palimpsest project. He nodded. These are all that's left. The memories that didn't burn. She looked at him sharply. Yours. He met her gaze. Ours. He held up a vial of soft grey pigment. When I thought I lost you, I tried to recreate what we had. The project was supposed to be a therapy, a way to preserve memory through sensory encoding. But I took it further. You used us. I connected us. His voice broke. When you erased yourself, I couldn't let you disappear, so I transferred what was left. Everything I remembered about you into your own neural imprint. Her hands trembled. You put your memories inside me, he nodded. And when you woke up, you were whole again, but not as you were. You carried both of us. Elena stepped back, shaking her head. That's not life, Adrian. That's theft. It's love, he said softly. The only way I knew to keep you alive. No, she whispered. You made me half of you. And now you're what's left of me. He looked down. I know. For the first time, he seemed fragile, stripped of his certainty. I remember your mother's voice, he said quietly. I remember the smell of your apartment, the way you used to hum while cleaning your brushes. I thought they were mine. They're not. Tears filled her eyes. Because they're mine. He smiled weakly. No, Elena, because now they're both of ours. The sky broke open, faint sunlight scattering through the mist. She stared at him, heart aching. Is that why the painting's still alive? He nodded. It's the last link between us. It keeps rewriting itself, blending what's left of our minds. She looked toward the horizon. And when it's done, then one of us will fade. She turned back to him sharply. Which one? He didn't answer, just looked at her with a kind of quiet resignation. I built the system wrong. It can't hold to people in one memory chain forever. It chooses the stronger imprint. A silence fell between them. The lake shimmered under the pale light, reflecting their figures, hers clear, his already blurring at the edges. He stepped closer. You were always the artist. You remember through creation. I only remember through you. Then stop trying to disappear, she said fiercely. He smiled that same small, sad smile she'd seen in every reflection. You don't understand. I already started fading the night you remembered me. She reached for him. Her fingers brushed his hand. It felt real, warm. But when she blinked, she saw ripples on the water behind him, as if his reflection were dissolving. Elena, he whispered, voice trembling, finish it. The last painting. What happens if I do? You'll be free, free from you. He looked down. Free of me. She shook her head, tears streaming. I don't want to forget again. He smiled faintly. Then paint something new. Not what we were, what you are. And before she could answer, he leaned forward and pressed his forehead to hers. A surge of warmth, then color, then silence. When she opened her eyes, she was alone on the dock. The vials lay empty beside her. Their colors drained into the water, turning the lake into a living painting that shimmered with their story. Back home that evening, she stood before the unfinished canvas in her studio. She took a breath, picked up a brush, and began to paint. Not Adrian, not herself, but light breaking through smoke, Every stroke felt like memory becoming motion. Every color, a goodbye that didn't hurt anymore. By the time she was done, the dawn had returned, soft, forgiving. The painting glowed faintly. Alive yet at peace, she whispered. This time, I'll remember for both of us. The new exhibition opened under soft gold light. The Seattle Art Institute had decided to feature her work, Reconstruction, a series of paintings born from fire and silence. People murmured as they walked past the canvases, their voices echoing like distant surf. Elena stood near the back, not as the artist, but as a quiet observer. She wore black, the kind of black that wasn't mourning but remembrance. Her hands still smelled faintly of linseed oil. At the center of the hall hung her final piece, Tomorrow's Color. The painting shimmered, as though light were bleeding out from the pigments. Some viewers thought it was an illusion. Elena knew better. Mr. Barker's granddaughter tugged at her sleeve. Ms. Cruz, the news people want a quote. About the inspiration, Elena smiled gently. Tell them it's about remembering what forgets us. The girl tilted her head, puzzled. That sounds sad. It's not, Elena said softly. It's how things survive. She wandered to the side of the gallery, tracing her fingertips along the edge of the wall. Every step felt strange, detached, almost dreamlike. Since the lake, she'd been sleeping little. The nightmares had stopped, but something else replaced them, dreams of color, of faceless figures moving through smoke. Sometimes, when she woke, she could still smell Adrian's cologne, that faint cedar scent that lingered behind. Memory, but she didn't paint him anymore. She didn't have to. Ms. Cruz. She turned. A man stood before her, tall, dressed neatly, but unremarkably. Mid-30s, maybe. Brown hair, grey eyes. There was something familiar about the shape of his face. The way he watched her like he was seeing a reflection of himself. Yes, she said. He pointed toward Tomorrow's Color. Did you dream this before you painted it? The question startled her. Excuse me. He hesitated. I know this sounds strange, but I've seen that painting before. In my sleep, she studied him closely. He wasn't lying. His eyes held that same distant confusion she'd seen once in her own mirror. When did you start seeing it? She asked. 3 months ago. It was just flashes at first. Color, fire, water. Then faces. He paused. Your face. Elena's pulse quickened. Do you know who I am? He shook his head. No, but when I saw the exhibition poster last week, I knew I had to come. It felt like déjà vu. No, stronger. Like recognition. She felt the room narrow around them. What's your name? Michael West. The world tilted. West. Her voice came out barely a whisper. You're related to Adrian. I was adopted, he said slowly. Records show I came from one of the company's research facilities, but I never found which. My earliest memory is of a room full of paintings. Of you, her breath hitched. That's not possible. He looked away. Then why do I remember holding a brush? The gallery noise faded. She could hear her heart beat fast, uneven. Come with me, she said. She led him into a side hallway where the noise of the crowd couldn't reach. What do you mean by research facility? After my foster parents died, I started looking into my background, Michael said. There were gaps. I kept seeing the same name, Project Palimpsest, and something called Cycle 17. Elena's hands went cold. There was no Cycle 17. He met her eyes. Then what am I? For a moment, neither spoke. The air between them felt charged, fragile. I don't know, she whispered finally. But if you're remembering me, it means something of the system survived. He frowned. System. She took a shaky breath. The paintings weren't just art. They were containers. For memory. Adrian found a way to encode us, me, him, into pigment and light. Maybe you are part of him. Michael finished quietly. She nodded once, tears stinging her eyes. Or both of us. Michael looked back toward the gallery. Then that painting, Tomorrow's Color. It's not just a painting, is it? Elena's voice was barely audible. No, it's the doorway. To what? She looked at him, really looked, and saw, beneath his calmness, something unbearably familiar. The way he tilted his head, the hesitation before he spoke. Tiny gestures Adrian used to make without knowing. She whispered to him. The lights above them flickered. From inside the hall, someone gasped. Elena turned. The painting was glowing again. Not like reflection, but from within, as if something beneath the layers was waking. Michael took a step toward it. It's calling, wait. He reached out and touched the canvas. The surface rippled under his fingers like water. Color bled outward, spreading across the frame, up his arm. He didn't pull back. His expression was calm, almost peaceful. It feels like remembering, Elena. Clara's voice came from behind, distant. Step away. Elena grabbed Michael's arm, trying to pull him back, but the canvas held him, light wrapping around them both. She saw flashes, not of her memories, but his. A child watching flames. A man waking in a white room. Paint dripping from his hands. And Adrian's voice whispering, if I fade, let someone else carry the light. Then everything went white. When the light subsided, the gallery was silent. The crowd stood stunned. The painting was gone. In its place stood a blank canvas, untouched, pure. And in front of it, only Elena remained, her hands smeared with silver pigment that shimmered faintly, like memory still breathing. That night, alone in her studio, she opened her eyes to find a small note on the table, her handwriting. Though she hadn't written it, the painting isn't the memory. You are A.W. She looked at the blank canvas leaning against the wall, and in its white, she saw the faintest hint of a reflection, her own face. Smiling back, and behind her, a man she could no longer name. It rained again the next morning. Slow, steady, as if the sky itself were painting. Elena sat in her studio, staring at the blank canvas that had replaced Tomorrow's Color. She hadn't slept since the night of the exhibition. The silence in her head was too full. Michael's disappearance had made the news. Man vanishes during art show, the headline said. They called it an illusion, a publicity stunt, a hoax. No one believed the truth that the painting had breathed, that it had taken him, but Elena knew better. She could still feel the warmth where his hand had touched hers before he faded. The pigment had left, a faint silver mark on her skin. It wouldn't wash off. Clara stopped by that afternoon, anxious and pale. They're shutting the exhibition down, she said. People are scared. Elena nodded absently. Maybe they should be. Clara hesitated. What really happened, Ellie? Elena turned the canvas toward the light. It glimmered faintly, faint patterns pulsing beneath the white. You ever think, she said softly, that memory doesn't die when we do? That it just changes shape? Clara frowned. You're scaring me. Elena smiled faintly. I scare myself. That night, she dreamed of the lake again. Only this time, she wasn't alone. A man stood on the dock, but not Adrian, not Michael. Someone between them, his face shifting gently with each breath. He looked at her, voice quiet and steady. You finished the painting? Yes, she said. Then why is it still painting you? She turned. The surface of the lake shimmered with color. Dozens of canvases floated there, reflecting pieces of her life. Each one carried a signature. Cycle 17. She woke with a gasp. The smell of rain and turpentine filled the air. The canvas at the far end of the room wasn't blank anymore. Faint brushstrokes had appeared overnight, light blue bleeding into grey, a horizon taking shape. She stepped closer. The outline of a figure emerged, tall, faceless, standing in the mist, and next to it, a smaller silhouette, holding a brush. The label on the back of the canvas read, Cycle 17, Initiation. Her hands shook. No, a voice echoed softly, not aloud, but inside her head. Don't be afraid. It's just remembering, Michael. She whispered no answer, but the voice was unmistakable, warm, steady, familiar. It wasn't exactly his. It wasn't exactly Adrian's, either. It was both. You didn't lose us, the voice said. You carried us, and now we carry you. She pressed a hand to her temple. What does that mean? The system didn't end. It evolved. Her reflection flickered across the wet window pane for a heartbeat. Not alone. Two shadows stood where one should be. The following days blurred together. She stopped leaving the house. Stopped answering calls. Neighbors said they could hear music late at night, low, mournful, like the sound of rain played backward. Others said they saw lights through her windows, colors moving across the walls, as if the house itself were breathing. Inside, Elena painted non-stop, not because she wanted to, but because she couldn't stop. Every new canvas began blank, and then colors bled from her hands, sometimes forming landscapes she'd never seen, faces she didn't know. Each one ended the same way, with two signatures in the corner, ECAW on the 12th night. She called Clara. I think it's happening again, Elena said quietly. What is the project? But this time, it's not a machine. It's me. Clara's voice trembled. You're not making sense. Maybe not, Elena murmured, but the paintings are. They remember things I never lived. She looked at the latest piece, a city skyline glowing under rain, a man standing beside her reflection. She whispered, they're all connected. Every painting a neuron. Every memory a pulse. Thunder rumbled outside. She set the phone down and turned toward the wall, the blank canvas she'd been saving for last. Her brush hovered, trembling in her hand. I won't forget again, she said aloud, and as if the house itself answered. A faint whisper came through the static of rain. You won't have to. She began to paint. The brush moved faster than her thoughts, as if guided by invisible hands. Light, fire, water, two figures meeting under an endless sky. The pigments shimmered, alive with movement, each color humming softly like breath. By dawn, she stepped back. The painting was finished. It showed no faces, just two silhouettes made of light, merging into one as they reached toward the horizon in the lower corner. The title glowed faintly. Cycle 17, Continuum. She smiled, tears on her cheeks, and when she looked up, the room felt larger, the air filled with a quiet warmth that didn't belong to the living. A man's voice whispered softly behind her, closer than memory. See, we never really end. We just change color. Elena closed her eyes. Then let this be the last one. No, the voice said, fading gently. It's the first. The attic smelled of dust and linseed oil. Lucas pushed the door open with both hands, the old hinges groaning in protest. Sunlight filtered through the small, circular window, scattering across covered shapes that looked like sleeping ghosts. He was 17 now, taller than his mother had ever been, his face carrying something of her, and something else he couldn't quite name. He'd never liked this part of the house. Even years after Elena's death, the attic had remained locked, until today. The letter had arrived that morning, unsigned, written in his mother's handwriting. When you're ready to see what I saw, follow the light upstairs. He walked deeper inside, brushing dust off old canvases leaned against the walls. Some were blank. Some carried faint images, that shimmered when the light hit them right. Landscapes, faces, the ocean. But there was one that drew him in. A large canvas covered with linen, set on an easel in the center of the room. He hesitated, then pulled the cloth away. The painting took his breath. It showed a lake under a storm, silver water, grey sky, two figures standing on a dock. Their outlines made a faint light dot in the bottom corner. A signature he recognized from the stories his mother used to tell him. E. Cruz, a West underneath, faintly etched into the paint. Cycle 17, Continuum. He stared at it for a long time, the air buzzing faintly around him. Then a whisper, barely audible, like a thought brushing against his ear. Lucas. He froze. He turned. The attic was empty. Mum, he said quietly. Is that you? Silence. Then another whisper, softer this time, coming from the painting itself. Don't be afraid. He stepped closer. The surface of the canvas seemed to shimmer, like heat over glass. His hand hovered just above it, and warmth radiated from the paint. He pulled back instinctively, heart racing, then curiosity, that old, familiar Cruz stubbornness. One dot. He touched the canvas. The world tilted. Light burst across his vision, colors, shapes, sounds all merging into one blinding rush. He saw fragments. A woman painting under rainlight. A man smiling beside her, eyes tired but gentle. Flames eating through walls. A lake glimmering. Two hands reaching out, merging into light. Then silence. When he opened his eyes again, he was still in the attic. But the air felt different, charged, alive, and on the wall. Something new had appeared. Another canvas, smaller, fresher. He hadn't seen it before. It showed him Lucas, standing in this very room, looking at the painting. The detail was uncanny, almost photographic. At the bottom corner, Cycle 18, Initiation. He stepped back, breath trembling. Mum, he whispered, what did you do? Finished what we started, the voice answered softly inside his head. He turned toward the old easel. The painting of the lake was glowing again, colors moving beneath the surface like veins of light. Images flickered in the glow, his mother's face, Adrian's silhouette, and then his own reflection overlapping theirs. It's your turn now, the voice said. His mother's, layered with something deeper, something older. Turn for what? He whispered. To remember differently. The light softened, spreading across the floor, up his shoes, his hands. The warmth was steady, not fire this time, but something gentle. Forgiving, he closed his eyes and let it wash over him, for a moment. He wasn't sure if he was standing in the attic or inside the painting, and maybe, he thought, there wasn't a difference anymore. Downstairs, the rain had started again, the same endless rhythm that had followed his family for decades. Lucas walked to the window, looking out at the grey sky, then back at the glowing canvas behind him. He smiled faintly, the way his mother used to when she finished a piece. He picked up a brush lying on the floor, old, frayed, but still holding color, and in a voice that wasn't quite his alone, he whispered, let's begin. The brush touched the canvas. Light spilled forward, and the attic filled with color. 30 years later, the painting resurfaced. It was found in an estate sale just outside of Portland, mislabeled, water-stained, forgotten. The curator who bought it for $200 didn't know its history. Not at first, he only knew that when the sunlight hit the canvas at dawn, the colors seemed to breathe. The painting was titled Cycle 18, Initiation. It showed a young man in an attic, staring at a glowing canvas. The brushstrokes were meticulous but soft, the kind that came from someone who painted not to be seen, but to be remembered. No one knew who Lucas Cruz was. No one remembered the scandal of West Industries, or the rumors about memory experiments through art time had painted over the truth. But truth, like pigment, has a way of resurfacing. At the restoration lab of the Seattle Museum of Contemporary Art, a young conservator named Amara Ellis ran a gloved hand over the varnished surface. The paint was still pliable, in some places impossible, given its age. "Looks alive," her assistant murmured. Amara smiled faintly. "They all do, if you look long enough." But later, when she was alone, she turned off the overhead light and held a UV lamp over the canvas. That's when she saw it, hidden under the top layer of paint. Faint symbols glowed, not coordinates, not numbers this time. Just words, cycle 19, continuum. For whoever remembers next. For days afterward, Amara couldn't stop thinking about it. She dreamed in color, silver, gold, and vermilion. Sometimes, she saw a woman painting beside a window, rain outside. Sometimes, a man's voice murmured, "Memory becomes light." And always, at the edge of every dream, there was a boy standing in an attic, holding a brush. When she woke, she could almost smell linseed and rain. A month later, the museum opened an exhibit called Memory and the Machine. Cycle 18 hung at the center, surrounded by mirrors. Visitors came and went, whispering about its mystery, its warmth, how it almost seemed to follow you with its light. Children pressed their faces to the glass, giggling. Couples held hands in front of it, not knowing why it made them sad. Old painters stood silently, eyes wet, remembering things they thought they'd forgotten. On the last day of the show, Amara stayed late to close up. The gallery was empty, the lights dimmed, leaving only the faint glow from the emergency lamps. She stood before the painting and whispered, "Who are you?" The colors shimmered, and for a moment she thought she saw movement. The boy on the canvas, tilting his head, the brush in his hand glinting softly. Then, very faintly, a reflection appeared behind him. A woman's face, gentle, watching, and beside her, a man made of light. Amara blinked. The image returned to stillness. She exhaled, half a laugh, half disbelief. Maybe art really does remember. Her voice echoed in the empty hall. She turned to leave, but stopped. The air felt charged again, like the pause before a heartbeat. She looked back once more, under the low light. Something new had appeared in the bottom corner of the canvas. Fresh paint, still wet. 2 initials. AWECSHE whispered, "No way." The lights flickered. A faint hum filled the gallery, not mechanical, but human, like breathing. The colors deepened, shifting subtly, blues into violet, gold into dawn. It looked, for the briefest moment, as if the painting were opening, a doorway painted in pigment and light. Amara reached out, fingertips grazing the surface. It was warm. The warmth spread through her arm, gentle, not frightening. In that instant, she saw them all, Elena, Adrian, Lucas, not as ghosts, but as stories suspended in color. Their love, their grief, their memory, all still alive. All still painting. A tear slid down her cheek. "Thank you," she whispered, and somewhere inside the paint, faint, layered through decades of silence, a voice answered, "Now it's your turn." When the janitor arrived the next morning, the gallery was locked, quiet. The painting still hung on the wall. But something was different. The boy in cycle 18 was gone. In his place stood a young woman, brush in hand, eyes bright with the reflection of a world yet to be painted. At the bottom corner, a new inscription gleamed softly in gold. Cycle 19, infinite. Memory does not end. It continues.